a school bus to bursting once you remove all of the seats. When we start looking at God's creation, we can see that we are nothing compared to everything else He has made. The sun isn't even the largest star in our little corner of the universe. If we move forward one slide, this is the next star I want to talk to you now. It can be pronounced Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse. I will obviously be using the name Betelgeuse. It is a red pulsating supergiant that you can see in the night sky without the use of a telescope. The name Betelgeuse is actually Arabic. It stands for the armpit of the giant. And if you're familiar with the constellations, Betelgeuse actually makes up the armpit of the constellation Orion. I point out it's a pulsating star because astronomers have watched the size and brightness of the star change during our lifetime. The rough estimates right now put this star at 548 light years away from us. A light year, by the way, is how far light travels in 1 year. So at 186,000 miles per second, multiply that by however many seconds there are in a year, it's a lot, I didn't bother memorizing it. You come up with 5.8 trillion miles that light travels in 1 year. When we started measuring things on the order of God's creation, we had to come up with a new unit of measure, hence 1 light year. Oh. Betelgeuse is twice the size of our, you think I'm going to say sun? Betelgeuse is twice the size of our orbit around the sun. Betelgeuse is estimated to be 1 trillion meters in diameter. My mind was completely blown when I first learned about this star when I was a junior in high school. I thought I could bargain with God, that I could pray my way out of situations, that I could tell God why the things I had laid up for my life were really the best options for me. You know, that I could give advice to God. And then I learned about Betelgeuse, and I was immediately humbled. All of a sudden, my prayers became, whatever you say, God, you know, you got this. Let me give you some perspective. If the Earth were the size of a ping pong ball, Betelgeuse would be Willis Tower, or Sears Tower. I've already been corrected this morning. It would be Willis Tower. That is the tallest tower in America, stacked on top of itself 5 more times. I can see some of you are visual people. We might need to take a little family road trip in order for this to really sink in. I want you to find yourself a ping pong ball, grab your family some tickets for the Metro, and head on to downtown Chicago. Walk on over to Willis Tower. Once you get there, just take out your ping pong ball, just set it right there on the ground next to the tower. Chicago, no one's going to think anything of it. Right? If you look up right then, you can't even see the top of Willis Tower. So you actually have to start walking several blocks away. Eventually, turn around, look back, and try to find your ping pong ball, if you can even see it. That is the Earth. Look up at Willis Tower, find the top, picture 5 more stacked on top of it, and that is Betelgeuse. You could fit 581 trillion Earths inside of Betelgeuse. If the Earth were the size of a ping pong ball, that is enough ping pong balls to fill Soldier Field Stadium 6,000 times. A couple people got it. I think for the rest of you, you might need to go back to Willis Tower, pick up your ping pong ball, and then head on over to Soldier Field. Grab yourself some tickets to see Chicago Fire. The family and I went just a couple months ago. We had an absolute blast. Or you can wait, Bears football season's coming up, you can go see a Bears game. Whatever the case may be, get inside the stadium and find your seat. And then just pull out your ping pong ball. Look around that stadium and try to imagine it filled with ping pong balls. And then somehow multiply that in your mind 6,000 more times. When we look at the scale of our God's creation, it is huge. And we are nothing compared to that. But guess what? Betelgeuse isn't even the largest star out there. That honor currently belongs to Stevenson 218, the third and final star I want to tell you about. Here's an infrared image taken from NASA's website. That bright red star in the middle there, the Stevenson 218. It's estimated to be 20,000 light years away from us. That's quite a few galaxies over, by the way. The diameter of Stevenson 218 is thought to be 3 trillion meters across. That is 3 times the size of Betelgeuse. If the Earth were the size of a ping pong ball, Stevenson 218 would be the height of Mount Everest. I won't ask you and your family to go climb Mount Everest and pack a ping pong ball with you the whole way. But you can picture this next time you're on an airplane. After takeoff, before you've completely leveled out, you'll be at roughly 30,000 feet. And if you look out the window, you should see an image, something like this. You can see the skyscrapers of Chicago, but cars are non-existent, and even all of our other buildings are pretty blurry. And somewhere down there in your garage is your Earth-sized ping pong ball. You could fit 13 quadrillion Earths inside of Stevenson 218. If the Earth were the size of a ping pong ball, that is enough ping pong balls to cover the state of Illinois. 8.2 feet deep. I'm 6 feet tall. Untuck my shirt. This is roughly 8 feet tall. Now that is a ball pit I would like to jump in. That was all created and captured in a 5-word sentence in Genesis 1:16. He also made the stars. Our household's been watching the Olympics, specifically men and women's gymnastics. That Bible verse is kind of like me describing Simone Biles. She's the most decorated American gymnast of all time. It's like me saying, she does gymnastics. Like it's no big deal. But to God, the creation of all these stars, it wasn't a big deal. That is how big our God is. I personally like the description that David uses in Psalm 33:6. By the word of the Lord the heavens were made, their starry host by the breath of his mouth. I have this image in my head of God speaking and these stars just pouring out of his mouth. Not a handful of stars, but whole galaxies of stars just pouring forth and forming this next image. This is Messier 51, also known as the Whirlpool Galaxy. Astronomers also call it the darling of astronomy. And that's because it sits perfectly perpendicular to the Earth so that we get this amazing view. Astronomers estimate there are more than 100 billion stars in the Whirlpool Galaxy. So each one of those pinpoints of light that you see there are actually hundreds of millions of stars. I believe God put this galaxy here just for us to look at and marvel in his majesty. A simple reminder of how great he is when we as humans start to get ahead of ourselves. So how big is our God? He's huge. And that's an understatement. He is greater than we can possibly imagine. If the Earth were the size of a ping pong ball, the sun would be 14 feet across, Betelgeuse would be 6 Willis Towers, Stevenson 218 would be the height of Mount Everest, and you and I, we would be 5 nanometers in height. That is the width of 2 strands of DNA. You couldn't even see us under Earth-sized ping pong ball with a regular microscope. You would need a specialized electron microscope to even make us out. Are you feeling insignificant yet? Because you should. I feel like David in Psalm 8, 3-4. When I consider your heavens, the work of your fingers, the moon and the stars which you have set in place, what is mankind that you are mindful of them? Human beings that you care for them. And God does care for us. We are but vapors in the wind. Yet the purpose of this whole book is to tell us that God cares for us. We might be insignificant on the grand scheme of creation, but to God, we are the most significant aspect of his creation. Created uniquely in his image, we are loved and we are cherished. I'm most reminded of this during the passage of Lazarus' death and resurrection. I can summarize the passage here for us real quick. Jesus and the disciples are hanging out, and Jesus is informed that his friend Lazarus is sick, and he's not getting any better. Instead of getting up and going to him immediately, Jesus decided to stick around 2 more days where he was at. Eventually, Jesus and the disciples went to Judea, and when they finally arrived where Lazarus was at, they were informed that Lazarus had already passed away. We can read Jesus' reaction in John 11, 33 through 36. When Jesus saw her, that is Mary, weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. "Where have you laid him?" he asked. "Come and see, Lord," they replied. And then Jesus wept. Then the Jews said, "See how he loved him." The shortest, but perhaps one of the most impactful verses in the whole Bible. Jesus wept. Not cried, but wept. Jesus knew the miracle he was about to perform. He had alluded to it to his disciples early in the chapter. But when Jesus saw the pain that Mary was in, his love for her was so great that he wept. We do not worship an impersonal God that just created this universe and mankind and then left us alone. We worship a God that loves us so much that he cries with us when we are hurting. We worship a God that loves us so much, he sent his son to die for us so that we would never have to be alone. We worship a God that had 66 books written that repeatedly say, "I love you and I want a relationship with you." We might be insignificant on the size of creation, but we are everything to him. And not only do we matter to God, but hopefully you can see he is big enough to handle all of our problems and worries. So the creator of the universe, the architect of these magnificent stars we've been talking about, says you matter. Not only do you matter, but he wants a personal relationship with you. It doesn't matter what sins you have in the past or what fears you have in the future. God says, "I know you, I love you, and I accept you." He set the groundwork. All we have to do is choose to accept. So if you're here this morning and you're interested in starting a relationship with God, when we sing our next song, please feel welcome to come to the front and talk to Dan or Lee up here. If you're like me and you'd be uncomfortable coming to the front, please stick around after service and find an Ellie I'd love to help you in your walk with God or just pray with you privately. Or if you want to share your worries publicly, we'd love to pray with you as a congregation. Whatever the case may be, know that God is bigger than you can possibly imagine, and he is here for you. Will you please stand with me as we sing our next song?